We're spending more now on roads in the next year's budget than we did on the entire budget 20 years ago. So what are we going to do about that spending? People are starting to wake up and starting to look at this and think, you know what? This is not where we want to go. And when you get the other candidates getting up and talking about, hey, this is how we're going to, this is how we're literally, I'm going to go get money for you, and we're going to spend it here. And they people start thinking, well, you know what? There's not, we know that money's tight right now. Who are you going to take that from?
Can I pause for a second and just note that we got Brian on here who's getting Congressman Massey on, and our typical lineup includes like homeless people that believe in Bigfoot.
Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show, your source for common sense politics on the We Are Libertarians network. The Brian Nichols Show is the fastest growing liberty podcast that brings together people from all means of political thought as we seek to have meaningful conversations about the issues you care about. At the Brian Nichols Show, our goal is to leave the audience educated, enlightened, and informed. And now your host, Brian Nichols.
Well, happy Sunday there, folks. Brian Nichols here on the Brian Nichols Show. Thank you for joining us on the program. And yes, to you YouTube listener, you get to see things a little earlier than everybody else. So thank you for tuning in early and every single week. Yes, you can catch the show on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, if you are catching the YouTubes. Or for you traditional audio listener, you get it Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at 6 a.m. And then our special Sunday Candidate Highlight Series, which is, of course, what you're here for today. Now, I mentioned in the outro of the last episodes, I'm pulling my notes up here, we had a good friend of the show, Daniel DiMartino, on, and today we're having a good friend of the show back on the show. It is one Sam Robb. Now, Sam, as I'm knocking over my notes, aren't I professional, folks? Sam is joining the Brian Nichols Show to talk about four awesome candidates that he has running here in Pennsylvania as libertarians in awesome special elections where we have a real shot. And here they are. Tim McMaster, who you can see above me right there, over there. Yep, Tim McMaster. He is running for state senate, and actually he was a good friend of our show here. We a returning guest. Nate Covington, Andrew Rhea, and Robb Lubert. Now, I hadn't had the chance to have those other three gentlemen on the show yet, but we have a great chance here today to talk to Sam, and Sam will outline exactly what their specific races are looking like, how you, as a voter in Pennsylvania, can get more involved, or if you're outside of the greater Pennsylvania area, what can you do in terms of learning from what is working on the ground here on a very special Sunday Candidate Highlight Series. So, with that being said, on to the show. Sam Robb here on the Brian Nichols Show.
Hey guys, how you doing? Thanks for having me back, Brian.
Absolutely, Sam. Thank you so much for returning to the program. For the long-time listener of the program, they heard you back when you were seeking the Libertarian nomination for our presidential run here back in 2020. They got to hear your story and your path to liberty. But for those new listeners, let's kind of catch them up to speed. Who is Sam Robb, and I guess particularly your role in our libertarian politics, specifically here in PA?
Wow. 2020 seems like forever ago. Just so you know, when you said that it just seems like it was another lifetime.
It does.
I'm just a guy from Pennsylvania, guy from Pittsburgh, and a couple of years ago, I decided that I was going to change my registration to libertarian, and then I decided that I was going to look for the libertarian nomination. That's kind of, if you've ever taught somebody to swim by throwing them off a pier into the deep end, that's kind of what happened. And it turns out I was able to doggy paddle a little bit. So got to know some people, ended up running Joe Jorgensen's campaign here in Pennsylvania. Had a tremendous amount of good people around me for that, a lot of which are still active in the party and still working to increase liberty in Pennsylvania. And ended up being appointed as Western Vice Chair after David Vesely, who's a tremendous guy. I've known him for a couple of years now. He's part of the LP Allegheny organization, and he stepped down as Western Vice Chair. I was appointed to fill that position. So came in just in time to see Pennsylvania the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania achieve minor party status, thanks to our state level candidates that ran along with Joe Jorgensen. And then two, see not one, not two, not three, but four special elections, two for the PA Senate and two for PA House, that are taking place this May 18th.
May 18th. It's just around the corner. I know you say, oh my goodness, where did 2020 go? Where is 2021 going? I can't believe we're already in May. And hey, that's a good opportunity, though, to segue right into the next conversation that I wanted to focus on, Sam. And that is, yes, we have some special elections right now that are taking place. And as we were talking beforehand, this is a great chance for libertarians to not only enter into the conversations that people are having specifically in these special elections, but now we can start to focus on issues that people truly care about and are looking to get motivated in voting for. So let's focus on these four elections. We had Tim, Nate, Andrew, and Rob. So we have four libertarian candidates, and in these four different districts, people have a choice. They have the red team, the blue team, or this gold libertarian porcupine team. So traditionally, we've heard, Sam, it's been voting for one of the two lesser of two evils, but now people are starting to look for other solutions. And I think it's on us as libertarians to present the Libertarian Party not just as another choice, but rather a real substantive solution to their problems. So let's make the pitch specifically in these four elections. Why should folks be voting for a libertarian candidate versus maybe a more safe Republican or Democratic candidate?
Ooh, that's really the crux right here. That's the point. If you're familiar with the last couple of years, we had a little thing go on, COVID-19, the pandemic, and along with that came what is referred to as either the lockdowns or the shutdowns. Pennsylvania in particular has been particularly stringent with lockdowns. We still have not exited from the lockdowns and the restrictions that come along with that the government has imposed on us. There's not a lot of people that are really happy with that. As a matter of fact, there's a number of people that are quite irate that even though things have been improving, even though things have been opening up in other states across the nation, that Pennsylvania is still locked down, that we're still suffering with people who are unemployed. We have businesses that are closing down. We have restaurants and other venues that will never reopen because of the damage that's been done during this over a year of lockdown and restrictions. All four of our candidates have been out there talking about this, and they've been assisted by the fact that we actually have three constitutional amendments on the ballot this May 18th in the primary election. So everybody in Pennsylvania, whether or not you are registered a Democrat or a Republican, you are able to go and vote. If you're registered to vote, you're able to go and vote on these constitutional amendments. And the first two deal with the powers of the governor to declare emergencies and basically take back and explicitly say, hey, instead of the governor declaring an emergency and then deciding when it's over, we're going to make continuing the state of emergency something that the legislature has to take part in. So both of those are attempts to pull some of the authority back from the governor. And frankly, you've got a lot of people across the country, well, across the state of Pennsylvania in particular, that really want to see those powers clawed back and given to representatives, as opposed to, we'll let one man decide how the economy of Pennsylvania goes. And there's some issues with the way that happened. There was one county in particular, I forget which one, that did not like the original lockdown orders and ended up, when everything else got eased across the state of Pennsylvania, for whatever reason, they continued on in lockdown for a little bit longer. So that's the sort of thing that, if you think about it, that gets gets their bristles up. And when their bristles get up, they start feeling like porcupines. So
right.
they're somebody that we want to talk to.
Yeah, well, and you hit on, I think, right there, Sam, the lockdowns. The lockdowns have been top of mind for everybody. Now, I'm not going to go through a past year's worth of podcasts that I've gone ahead, because there's hours of folks that can go and look through the treasure trove of me harping on LP National for the lack of messaging effectively towards these lockdowns. Because I think, this probably is one of the most consequential actions that the government has taken unilaterally across the board in not just like trying to, contain a virus, but
Mhm.
in so doing, quite literally shutting down society, telling people
Yeah.
you're essential, you're not essential, you can't work, you can't support your family, you have to shut down your gyms. I mean, it's gotten to the point now, I think more and more people are starting to realize that these rules, in most cases, if not all cases, are very arbitrary. They're not really based on the science trademark, but rather they're based on the politicians following a lot of these crazy models that were set from the very beginning of the pandemic. And once they set their policy in motion, I mean, it's pretty much like a freight train, carrying a massive load behind it. And it's not going to be able to stop that freight train for goodness, miles and miles and miles. It's by design. Because in this case, they don't want to have to say that they're wrong, because that would require them to say, oh, maybe we don't have all the answers. And it puts a massive hole in the argument of government being the ultimate solution, the ultimate arbiter of what is and is not factually correct, Sam. So let's talk to those people, right? I think that might be I say might be, I think, and no, I would say that is like number one, the thing we should be doing the most. But maybe for the folks who they're like, I didn't get impacted by the lockdowns, I still had my job. The lockdowns maybe aren't top of their mind. How about those folks? What would you say? And in sales, obviously, we're looking at what are the top maybe 2 or 3 issues that we can talk about. What would you say those other folks are out there? Is it maybe school choice or something else you see out there that we could focus on?
The other big ones, and I'll speak here personally from talking about Andrew Ria's campaign and Robb Luther's campaign, because I've been more closely associated with them being out here in the West. The couple of issues that resonate there are, not surprisingly, in Robb's district, which it tends to be a little more blue. They are talking about school choice. They're talking about getting back to school, some of those issues. In Andrew's district, which is a little more red, one of the big issues there has been making Pennsylvania a Second Amendment sanctuary state. So one of the things that I think these different campaigns have really kind of driven home, which was it's interesting and not something that you look at too closely. Usually, is the fact that each one of them, although they have some unifying messaging, each one of them is picking something that really resonates with the voters in their district. So we've got a 1-2 punch coming in. We've got, hey, we know that you're upset with the lockdowns. We know you're upset with the economy. Even if it's not affecting you personally, even if it's not something that's impacted you economically, you probably know plenty of people it has. You've probably seen what's going on out in your community as people have struggled with this. So we've got that punch, and then we come in with whatever is appropriate for the district. Like I said, in Andrew's district, a little more red. The former House representative there, Jeff Pyle, was a Republican. So Second Amendment is big up there. There were a number of houses that when we were out knocking on doors, that we saw that had a Jeff Pyle sticker with the Second Amendment saying on it. There's a number of people out there that are really concerned with fiscal responsibility. And the great thing here is we had a meet and greet for the candidates, all 3 candidates out there, which was really fantastic. The Chamber of Commerce put that on. They invited all 3 candidates there, the Democrat, the Republican, the Libertarian, and afterwards had a chance to talk to some of the Democrats out there. And if you want to talk about Pennsylvania being a little different from every other state, right? We have a ton of blue collar Democrats living out in the outside of the cities. These are folks that like unions. Hey, libertarians, we like private unions. These are folks that like guns. Hey, we're libertarians. We like the Second Amendment. These are folks that like when the government keeps their nose out of their business, because they're living out in the country. They're just doing their own thing, right? So whether they're Republicans or Democrats, there's a lot of common ground here. And one of those bits of common ground that kind of, I think, gets missed is fiscal responsibility. The Democrats that we talked with after the meet and greet were the ones who were citing to us, hey, this is what the budget was 20 years ago. This is what the increases have gone for. This is where we're spending money now. How are you going to, if Andrew, if you end up in the House, how are you going to pull this back and get us out of spending? I believe one guy pointed out that I think our PennDOT, our Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, roads. We're spending more now on roads in the next year's budget than we did on the entire budget 20 years ago. So what are we going to do about that spending? People are starting to wake up and starting to look at this and think, you know what? This is not where we want to go. And when you get the other candidates getting up and talking about, hey, this is how we're going to, this is how we're literally, I'm going to go get money for you, and we're going to spend it here. And they people start thinking, well, you know what? There's not, we know that money's tight right now. Who are you going to take that from? Who are you going to be hurting in order to, give us a new entryway at the school or whatever it is? So there was a lot of positive response to the idea of, you know what, we should put someone in office who's at least willing to talk about, hey, we need to rein in government, we need to increase liberty for the people, and we need to rein in our spending. 3 big issues.
So now the next question, we identified what the top 3 issues are to the market in this case. So let's now focus on, well, how can we actually get them to not just say, yeah, these are the things I care about, but these are the things that are going to push me to the ballot box. I guess, how do you think we can tell some stories? I mean, and let's maybe actually tell some stories out there. Sam, are there any stories that you've heard as you've been talking to maybe these 4 specific candidates as they've gone through their district, where a libertarian solution would really help somebody, maybe a problem that they saw in their specific areas, or maybe a situation where somebody had not heard a libertarian solution and they realize that would really make their lives objectively better?
Not kind of related to that. One of the things that really kind of shocked me, I've been going out. I've did some door knocking with Robb Luther down in Ligonier. I've done a lot of door knocking with Andrew Rhea up around the Apollo, Kiski area. I think I've, between the two of them, probably knocked on close to 2,000 doors, helping them get out there. And one, that's the way you do it. There is no doubt about that. We have reached more people going out and having conversations, having our teams going up and down the road. Had one gentleman just recently down in Ligonier, knocked on his door, said I was out campaigning for Robb Luther, and he looked at me and he said, people don't do this anymore. This is how you do things. People don't do this anymore. I'll vote for this Robb Luther. And we talked a little bit. But I think throughout all this, again, around 2,000 doors I've knocked on, I had one person ask me, so what's a libertarian? That's, to me, is really surprising. This is not an issue of like, oh, you're some third party, or tell me what you believe. They'd ask, is he a Republican or a Democrat? Oh, he's running as a libertarian. Oh, so he's pro guns and fiscal responsibility, right? Or oh, so the libertarians, you're the ones that for police reform, right? So those ideas are getting out there. Those messages are getting out there. I think we have a really unique opportunity at this point. People have heard of us. People have some idea of what we stand for, and people are willing to listen. And they're willing to listen because, let's be honest, government has managed to screw things up. I was just talking to a friend of mine. He stopped to drop off some stuff, and we ended up chatting. And I'm sure his wife didn't appreciate that because we were talking politics. But he is a very staunch Republican supporter. He is a tremendously nice guy. We've had some talks over the last year or so, and one of the things that we've gone back and forth and gotten to is, is he says, he'll say, I'm not sure that I agree with everything that the libertarians stand for. He said, but I understand where you guys are coming from now. And I see why a lot of your things will help. And I think that is really where we're getting to right now. We're seeing a lot of people looking at the war on drugs and thinking, so now you're going to ban menthol cigarettes. How is that going to help? What is that going to do? How is this going to be any different than what we've seen already? We know how prohibition works. We've seen it in our lifetimes with drug prohibition. How is banning sodas? How is banning straws? How is banning menthol cigarettes going to make life better for people? And the answer is we're starting to realize it doesn't. You know, you might be able to make arguments for some of this stuff, but you know what? Everything that you do, I'll take it back. You look at the decline in smoking and tobacco use in the United States. Some of that you can look at and say, yeah, okay, that was ban on smoking in bars or whatever, something like that. Most of that was just education, talking to people. And we've lost track of what it means to talk to people, to persuade people, to present an argument and say, hey, this is why this is good for you, and allowing people to make their own choices.
And I think the solutions to beyond talking to people, right? So let's take this perfect example you just laid up there, Sam, the smoking example, right? What else helped push smoking exponentially down in terms of a favorite pastime? It was the vaping industry. As soon as you started to see a new technology that started to put the old technology out of its necessity, all of a sudden the market started to correct. And what happened? Big tobacco reacted, and they went forward, and what they leveraged their crony buddies in government, and they were able to basically squash the vape industry, or at least very, very much cripple it. So I think it's important for us to, as libertarians, make sure that we do focus, again, not just on the solutions in terms of the argument, but also the actual solutions in the marketplace. I mean, think about who we have to be presenting to. And this is, I think, something that we as libertarians forget, is that the future is now. Gen Z is the future. And the oldest Gen Zers are 24 years old. That's crazy to me. When I first heard that, and here's the thing that blew me away too. There's two things that Gen Z doesn't, or rather not doesn't, but more so is a defining moment or a significant moment in history. Number one, most Gen Z doesn't remember a time before 9/11, which is just wow. Number two, most Gen Z doesn't remember a world before the iPhone. So think about those two things hand in hand. They don't know a world without us being in perpetual war, and they don't know a world where they don't have a literal mini computer in their pocket and they can access countless information, right? So we have to almost enter into that conversation, number one, knowing that, but number two, knowing that they're looking for the ease. They're looking for something that's going to be intuitive. They don't just go ahead and buy the first thing that they're told to buy from a friend. They do research on it as well. And they have a little smart computer. They can go ahead and check everything out. So when we're presenting ideas and solutions, right, it's more important for us to not just talk about the rhetoric or things that we don't like, but also to present those solutions. In sales, we talk about this, right? Not just going in and talking crap about the competitor, the existing vendor that you're going against, but rather showing where your solution helps better solve the problem that exists for your company, or where the existing vendor's solution is not meeting the problem that they said they were going to solve. And that's something that I think we need to do more effectively by not just talking about how great our ideas are and how intoxicating the ideas of liberty are. No, we need to start presenting the libertarian solutions out there. And actually I just had a conversation with Matt Kibbe where we focused on this exactly, and using storytelling to best tell those stories of those successful solutions. And Sam, I mean, goodness, that's what you did when you were in the private sector. You were part of a software company and you helped build those solutions quite literally from the ground up. That's something I think we need to encourage more of, this entrepreneurial spirit, but also this idea that it's not just you're trying to make money, but rather you're trying to solve problems that exist out there.
Oh, absolutely. 100% agree with you. And I mean, we do have an advantage here right? We're going out and we want to present the solution to the problems. And you mentioned, hey, in business, sometimes you want to go in and say, hey, we're going to solve problems in a way that your current supplier can't. Well, there's a bunch of problems that our current supplier in government just can't solve. We're seeing one of them right now. I was watching, earlier today, SpaceX, right? We have an entire space industry now that is built around private enterprise. That was unthinkable, 20, 30, 40 years ago. You want to talk about the, Gen Z, not remembering a time without iPhones. I'm looking forward and thinking, my grandkids, I'm hoping that they're going to grow up thinking, hey, you realize this current generation has never had a chance to talk to the colonists on the moon or on Mars. That would be fantastic. That would be awesome. But that's something that's an issue that the government isn't solving. As a matter of fact, you've got to get government out of the way to let those problems solve. We were talking earlier today about early in the pandemic, some of the sequencing of COVID-19 that was done. It was done here in Pittsburgh. There's a fairly convoluted story about it, but what it comes down to is before the government stepped in and said, no, we have to do this a certain way, the University of Pittsburgh got their hands on a sample, and they were able to start sequencing and identifying and understanding COVID before the government stepped in to tell them, no, don't. There are so many stories about government getting in the way. Particularly when you talk about healthcare, you talk about things like the government coming in and saying, okay, we're going to pass laws that you can only have so many hospitals or so many MRI machines in a certain area. MRI machines are expensive, and we don't want to, don't want the hospital who invested a lot of money into an MRI machine to get undercut by somebody, offering cheaper MRI services. What happens then is that you're artificially keeping prices high. Government stepped in to solve a problem, and it made it worse. We have tons of examples of this. The war on drugs is an example of this. Wars overseas are an example of this. There is literally, nothing that you can look at with government and not find a problem. And I'll be honest, I'm a minarchist, right? I'm not an anarchist. I think that we have, as human beings, we have far too many problems to get by without some sort of organizational structure. Whether that's smaller or voluntary or a night watch state, we can argue all those details. But that gets back to what you were talking about. People don't want to hear you argue about that stuff. People don't want to hear you or watch you on Facebook going into a 7-page explanation of why Rothbardian economics is more superior to. Well, you've lost them.
They don't.
No, I know. It surprised me too. What they want to see is libertarians in action. They want to see, hey, what are you doing? What is going on here? What are you talk about drug legalization? So what's going on? Have you been involved in doing any of that? Have you been talking to your local communities? Have you been working at it at the state level? What legislation have you introduced? There's a Defend the Guard legislation. Those guys are fantastic. They're talking about, hey, you know what? One of the things that's perpetuating these endless wars overseas is that the federal government comes back and says, hey, Pennsylvania, give us 5,000 National Guard. We're going to send them over to Iraq or Afghanistan or Pakistan or wherever for a year, right? We're activating them. Defend the Guard is basically an attempt to say, hey, we're going to, at the state level, we're going to come in and work on getting state legislation that says, no, give us a declaration of war and we'll go ahead and do what you say. But absent a declaration of war, we'll give you our National Guard for a month. Then we expect them to come back because they are not soldiers. They're not intended to be soldiers.
Yep.
So there's a number of things, and I would love to see libertarians more involved at all levels. I was mentioned this yesterday to a couple of guys. We need our evangelists. We need guys out there preaching liberty. We need guys out there. We need teachers. We need folks out there saying, "Hey, you know what? This is how you run a campaign. This is how you can get deal with your own personal finances. This is the libertarian way of working within your community." We need folks who are willing to just get out there and do the jobs that need to be done and show people that it can be done. The more people you show that it can be done, the more people you attract. You get a snowball effect. We're seeing that in Pennsylvania with the Joe Jorgensen campaign. We have a ton of people that are active in the party now because of her. Ton of people that are invigorated in the party because of her and Spike. That is what people see. They see activity. They see people working. They see people doing. And they realize that what we have is not just a philosophy. And to quote a former pastor of mine, Pastor Kurt Skelly, tremendous guy, he was very fond of saying this: you truly only believe that which moves you to action. If I walk into a room and it's beautiful and I scream fire, people are going to look around and go, "What are you talking about?" They're not going to do anything. If I walk in and there's smoke billowing out behind me and I scream fire, they believe me. They're going to get up and they're going to move their butts outside. We believe that which moves us to action. We truly believe it. When they see libertarians out doing libertarian things, they understand these guys are serious. They're not just talking the talk. They're out walking the walk, and they are serious. I want to be part of that.
Time to be serious. Time to go vote. That's right. Special election time. Sam, so I think you said it is May 18th. Correct me if I'm wrong.
May 18th. Yes, sir.
So we're airing this episode here on the Sunday before. It's going to be one of our special versions of our Sunday candidate highlight series, more of an overview of 4 amazing candidates here in the greater Pennsylvania Commonwealth. I guess we shall see how things shall turn out. Sam, Robb, as always, is a pleasure to talk to you. And I guess as a call to action, beyond folks going ahead and voting coming Tuesday, when can folks, or I guess rather, what else can folks do to go ahead and make sure they're helping support all the work your guys are doing and helping raise awareness for these 4 great candidates?
Well, I see you've got scrolling down at the bottom of the screen a couple of my Twitter handle, my Facebook handle. I will go out and make sure that I get these candidates, their web pages up. Contributions are always welcome, right? I know a lot of these guys are pouring their own money into these campaigns. Volunteers. You may think, okay, yeah, it's May 11th or whatever. The election's happening next week. What in the world can I do to help? Here's the answer. You can volunteer. You can get in touch with these campaigns and say, "Hey, I'm in your districts. I'm willing to go out and be a poll worker." All that means is you're willing to go take some literature. You're willing to take a sign. You're going to go out and stand at the polls. And when people come to vote, you say, "Hey, here we go. Vote Tim McMaster. Vote for Andrew Rhea." Someone pointed out that I believe a third of the people that go to vote at any election don't know who they're voting for at the door. They make their decision on the way in. So, and in a 3-way race, okay, we're talking about these are primary races in smaller districts. For example, for Robb and Andrew in their PA House races, their win numbers are somewhere around 6,000. If we could put somebody at every polling place with an Andrew Rhea sign, with a Robb Luther sign, with some literature, we're going to have a larger than normal turnout, because people are going to be coming out to vote on these constitutional amendments. And that's a chance to put these guys' name right in front of people and say, they are behind reigning in the government's power. They want to make sure that you have the freedom to live your life the way you want. And they are all for letting you keep your money. That can have a tremendous impact on any one of these 4 elections.
I'm all about it. So, folks, there is your call to action. Get involved. And yes, get out and vote. May 18th, if you are in one of these districts with these 4 special elections, please do your part. And quite literally, your vote could be the difference. 6,000 votes, that's nothing. And goodness, Sam's already gone, knocked on half of them, or at least a quarter of them for you. So, Sam, thank you for doing the hard work, putting in all the blood, sweat, and tears, and yes, all the mileage in your shoes, knocking on doors. And with that, thank you so much again for joining the Brian Nichols Show.
Thank you, Brian.
Alrighty, folks, that's going to wrap up my conversation with Sam Robb. Thank you, Sam, for joining us here on the program. And folks, please, if you're in PA, go out and vote. We need to go ahead and get these candidates as much support as possible. So I'm asking you, please do your part if you can. If you're in the areas, please get out there and go ahead and vote for those 4 amazing candidates. And a special shout out, to my boy, Tim McMaster. I'm going to keep on giving you some love. Tim was on the show. Send over some awesome swag, by the way. That's how you go ahead and get in my my good graces list, by the way, guests. Send some swag my way, which I will also send to my Patreon members, by the way. Just a heads up, if you want to become a Patreon subscriber. Oh, am I putting the cart before the horse? Hold on, folks. So really quick, yeah, we have an awesome Patreon. If you haven't heard about that yet, I don't know what you've been doing, but hey, our Patreon is growing faster than ever. Head over to the Brian Nichols Show Patreon. Number 1, you can become an entry-level sales executive or an account executive. Regardless, you're going to go ahead and pique some interest by go ahead and getting this awesome Don't Hurt People and Don't Take People Stuff bumper sticker. And if you're lucky enough and maybe you live in PA, you may have received a couple of these awesome, I keep on pointing over my wrong shoulder, some of these awesome swag here from our different PA candidates. So Tim McMaster, for example, Joe Solowski, for example, New Jersey candidates, you may have gotten some stuff from Nicholas Magner and Greg Mealy. So hey, with that being said, folks, I appreciate all the support. But if you want to go ahead and do me a favor, and you're like, hey, I can't join $5 a month, $10 a month right now, Brian, what else can I do? Well, a few things. Number 1, you can share today's episode. Go ahead. Though make sure you tag me at B Nichols Liberty, Twitter, Facebook, and Minds.com. I don't know why I had a slur there. B Nichols Liberty. Come on, folks. We're going to make it through this. I promise. And again, Facebook, Twitter, Minds.com, and yes, Parler.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love to hear about it. Email me, Brian, at briannicholsshow.com. Or hey, if you know of a guest or you represent a guest, I would love to hear about said guest. We would love to get him on the show. So email me, Brian, at briannicholsshow.com. And then one ask, of course. Oh, well, I guess 2 ask. Number 1, if you have not yet here on the YouTubes, please hit that magical subscribe button and the little notification button so you do not miss a single episode. And then if you have not yet, head over to Apple Podcasts, give us a quick 5-star rating and review. It literally costs you no dollars to go ahead and do that, but telling a quick story about why you like the show, that will inspire so many people to come over here to become new members of the Brian Nichols Show audience. Your support means so much. So thank you, folks, for all the love and support thus far as we've been growing this show over the past, couple of years now? Going on 3.5 years? Where is the time gone? My goodness, I must be something about this whole sales thing that it's actually working because we're changing people's hearts and minds, and I love it. And speaking about that, coming up here on Monday, good friend Jeremy Todd, he's doing a lot of work with this whole Liberty Unity thing, but he's also a sales guy. So we're going to be talking some sales and Liberty Unity, so make sure you do not miss that episode coming up here on Monday. So that being said, it's Brian Nichols signing off here on The Brian Nichols Show for Sam Robb. We'll see you Monday.
Thanks for listening to The Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.